Things I enjoyed in May 2023. Things I enjoyed. Essential Howard the Duck Volume 1, comedy/satire comic about an anthropomorphic duck living in the human world. Goes on too long, but fun for a bit. From Hell by Alan Moore. Not as good as Alan Moore's other comics, but a solid story about the Jack the Ripper investigation and the society it takes place in. The Golden Apples of the Sun by Ray Bradbury. Collection of short stories by Ray Bradbury, some of them quite good, some of them alright, overall a good time. Of One Blood by Pauline Hopkins. First science fiction book written by a black woman that we know of. Fun spin on Lost World books during the trip to Africa. Precursor to Black Panther-esque Afrofuturism stories. The Palace of Dreams by Ismail Kadare. Critique of Albania's totalitarian government written near the end of the communist regime. Controversial and well written, though you kind of get the point well before the story ends. Shadow Shaper by Daniel Jose Older. Fun YA urban fantasy book with likable characters and solid pacing. Not usually a fan of these, but this one is decently executed. Nijigahara Holograph by Inio Asano. Magical realist manga about regret and the sense of being stuck in one place forever. The plot is confusing, but that's not quite as important as the motifs and themes you pick up on. Tatsuki Fujimoto Before Chainsaw Man, 22 through 26. Collection of short stories by Tatsuki Fujimoto. His style isn't quite as developed here as it is in Chainsaw Man, but I appreciate his characters and how wild and offbeat his imagery gets. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead by Tom Stoppard. Surrealist play about two minor Shakespeare characters and their place in the world. Leans a bit too heavy on metaphor, but the dialogue is good and the humor is fun. 100% Molly McGee. Not a big fan of the Ghost and Molly McGee, but this episode resonated with me. It accurately captures what it's like to lose your culture and then meet your family members who still speak the language. A Normal Lost Phone. Puzzle game about digging into a phone you found to learn about its previous owner. Solid story, short, cheap, and the puzzles aren't too hard. Pokemon Wilting Y. ROM hack of Pokemon Y that makes the game harder. Fun time. I thought the battles were well designed and provided a decent challenge. Things I actively recommend. The Best of R.A. Lafferty. Collection of short stories by a relatively unknown sci-fi writer. No exaggeration, the best short story collection I've ever read. The prose is great and the ideas are varied. One story you'll be reading about a child designing a machine that makes things disappear, and the next story is about a doctor dealing with the existential horror of dying. Can't recommend enough. Count Magnus by M.R. James. Effectively scary vampire short story. Does a great job building tension. Inferno by Dante Alighieri. One of the most famous poems in history and lives up to the hype. I adore the imagery Dante comes up with and appreciated the look into the social mores of Italy in the 1300s. The Baumoff Explosive by William Hope Hodgson. Good horror short story about a man who tries to scientifically prove that Christ was the Son of God and ends up biting off more than he can chew. The Voice in the Night by William Hope Hodgson. Good horror short story about two men on a nighttime boat ride who find a mysterious stranger and listen to his story. Time and the Gods by Lord Dunsany. Good series of short stories about a world, the gods that rule it, the people and creatures that occupy it, and the endless varieties of ways these groups interact with and screw with each other. I love how it builds its mythology. Look Back by Tatsuki Fujimoto. Sad story about two girls and the friendship they build through collaborating on manga creation. My favorite Tatsuki Fujimoto story.